homework time, homework time. Here we go. Lesson 8 homework. Let's start by putting our names at the top of our homework. So I'll put my name, Mr. McGrath, and you put yours. How's that? Deal? Great. And then let's put today's date. I will just write today, but you write the actual date, where, and when you are. And let's read the instructions. Complete each statement by rounding the number to the given place value. Use the number line to show your work. Great, we're rounding. We have a vertical number line. So let's look at, we'll do 1A and 2A, and then do the B, B, C, C after. So let's look at 1A. 67,000 rounded to the nearest 10,000 is blank. Okay, well, we're rounding to the nearest 10,000. So what digit is in the 10,000th place? Yes, indeedy do. It's that 6. So what's our baseline 10,000 with the 6 in the 10,000th place? It is 60,000. 6 10,000s, we could also say. 60,000. And what is, because we're rounding to the nearest 10,000, so I'd say what is 10,000 more than 60,000? It indeed, yes, is 70,000. And then to find the midpoint, you say, well, it's halfway between those 10,000 marks. So what's half of 10,000? Well, half of 10 things is 5 things, so half of 10,000 is 5,000. So it's the 5,000 mark between here, between 60 and 70,000, so it'd be 65,000 is our midpoint. And we'll do a little more detail just on this first one than we will on the rest, just to kind of remind you of previous 7 lessons. So now we're rounding 67,000 on this vertical number line. Well, let's mark off each point here. 60,000 and then 61,000, 62,000, 63,000, 64,000, we already have 65,000, 66,000, 67,000, 68,000, 69,000, 70,000. Great. So now where is 67,000 on this vertical number line? Well, there's 65, 66, 67,000. There it is. And when we look at 67,000, it's past the midpoint, so it's closer to, yes, that's 70,000. So we would round it to 70,000. And now let's look at 2A. Here we have the number 867,000, which we're rounding to the nearest 100,000. So same questions here, same procedure. What's in the 100,000s place? It's an 8. So there are 800,000s. That's our baseline here for our vertical number line. 800,000. And because we're rounding to the nearest 100,000, we'd say, well, what's 100,000 more than 800,000? Yes, indeed, it is 900,000. And without going into as much detail, to find our midpoint, we say, well, what's half 100,000? Well, what's half 100 things? 50 things is half of 100 things. So half of 100,000 is 50,000. So it's the 50,000 mark between 8 and 900,000. So 850,000 is our midpoint. And then we simply place 867,000 on this vertical number line. We can see that 67 comes after 50, right? So say right about here, we have 867,000. And obviously, what is it closer to? Yes, it's closer to the 900,000. Great. So that's 1A and 2A. Let's go on to B, B, C, C. See you there. All right, here we go with the BCs. And we're going to go through these a little faster here because I have to work on the assumption that you're getting the hang of this, okay? We just need to make sure you're doing every little step right. So here we are with B, 1B. We have 51,988 rounded to the nearest 10,000 is blank. Okay, well, we're rounding to nearest 10,000. What's in the 10,000 place? Yes, it's a 5, so 5 10,000s we'd write in standard form as 50,000. Now you see why we learned like unit form and expanded form and standard form and all that. What's 10,000 more? That's right. From 50,000 would be 60,000. And what's our midpoint? Well, it would be the 5,000 in between the 10,000s. So 55,000 is our midpoint. So where does 51,988 fall on here? We'd say right about here. 51,988. And you can see quite clearly which 10,000 it's closest to. That's right, it's closest to 50,000. And of course, we'll get to the point where you won't even need the number line for these. You'll just be able to kind of picture that in your head or work without it. Let's move down now to 1C, where we're still rounding to the nearest 10,000. The number we're rounding is 105,159. This is throwing us a little curveball because when we look and say how many 10,000s are there, it's a little tricky. Now if I asked you what's in the 10,000s place, you'd say 0. But if I asked you, well, how many 10,000s could we say there are? There are actually 10 10,000s. Do you see why I'm saying there's 10 10,000s and why that's useful? Do you see it? Okay, so the nearest 10,000 is 100,000. And when I write the number, that will start to make sense. Because if we were skip counting by 10,000s, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, 60,000, 7,000, 8,000, 90,000, 100,000, 110,000, and so on. Do you see how 100,000 is a point in that skip counting by 10,000? So 0 wouldn't make sense here, right? 0 is 105,000 away from this number. It's far, far away. It's not within 10,000. The nearest 10,000 mark below it is 100,000. All right, so and 10,000 more than this, well, we just add 1. We did this with place value charts. Remember a few lessons back? 10,000 more than this would just be adding 1 in the 10,000s place, correct? Adding 1 10,000. So we would just rewrite this number, 100,000, but adding 1 in the 10,000s place. Well, there's a 0 in the 10,000s place, so adding a 10,000 makes that 0, 1. And that's why our upper 10,000 is 110,000. Making sense? Good? All right. And now our midpoint, ignore from it, pretend that it was just 0 and 10,000. What would the midpoint be between 0 and 10,000? It would be 5,000, right? We've said many times the midpoint is the 5,000 between two 10,000 points. So it'd be 5,000 between here, which would be 105,000. This one's a little tricky, isn't it? So now, the easy part now, because setting up the number line was the part where you had to do a little thinking because the number's over 100,000, yet we're rounding to the nearest 10,000. But placing the number here is not quite so tricky. We can see it's just over 105,000. So I'll just put it right here so I have space to write it. 105,159. And then what 10,000 is it closest to? Which of these? It's obviously closer to the 110,000. Okay, and if you find that confusing, go back, watch that again. Let's jump up to 2b now. We have the number 767,074 rounded to the nearest 100,000. Okay. Now this is similar but actually easier in a way because we're looking at just the 100,000s place, right? So what's our 100,000? That's right. There's a 7 there. So 700,000. And then what's 100,000 more than 700,000? Yes, you know, it's 800,000. And our midpoint, well, what's half of 100,000? Half of 100 is 50, so it's the 50,000 point between. So 750,000 is our midpoint. And then to place this number, we look at 767. Yes, that would be above 750, right? 767 above 750. So we'll say right there is where 767,074 would fall. And then which 100,000 is it closest to? Yes, it's closest to the 800,000. And last one for this page, let's look at 2C. Our number is 629,999. Lots of 9s there, but they actually don't matter, you'll see, because we're rounding to the nearest 100,000. So really all we're too much concerned with is what's in this 100,000, 10,000 place. The rest of it, you see, doesn't matter so much, or at all, really. So we have a 6 in the 100,000s place, so our baseline is 600,000. And you say, what's 100,000 more than 600,000? Would be 700,000. See how we're cruising along now, huh? And what's our midpoint? Well, we know when we're rounding to the nearest 100,000, it's going to be that 50. Because 50 is half of 100 is our midpoint. So from 600,000 to 700,000, the midpoint is 650,000. Now you see why we did like a whole lesson on finding the midpoint. All right, now we can place our numbers. 629, where would it fall on here? Yes, between 600 and 650, so 629,999. So don't let those 9s throw you off. As you see, they totally don't matter here. Really, that 2 in the 10,000s place is what helps us place this. Those 4 9s there don't change anything. And so what 100,000 is it closest to? That's right, it's closest to 600,000. Excellent. You got it. So let's bing, turn the page. Alrighty, here we go with number 3. Good. We got a word problem. Real life. Using this stuff in real life. Because guess what? In real life, nobody hands you a worksheet. But you have to do math in real life, and that's what these are all about. Okay, so we have a number. Remember, we read these 3 digits as if they're standing on their own. When we hit that comma, we say the place where we are. So 491,852. People went to the water park in the month of July. Round this number to the nearest 100,000 to estimate how many people went to the park. Use a number line to show your work. Hey, great. We don't have too much to do here. This is pretty straightforward. We're just rounding that number, right? And to the nearest 100,000. So let's make our own vertical number line. Here they're not providing us with one because we could put our big pants on. Our baseline, we're going to nearest 100,000. So at the bottom of our number line, you see we have a 400,000s in our number. So 400,000s is our lower point on our vertical number line, and then you ask yourself, what is 100,000 more, since we're rounding to nearest 100,000? And yes, indeed, 100,000 more than 400,000 is 500,000. And you say, what's our midpoint? Well, we just did a bunch of these. So our midpoint with 100,000 is 50,000. So what's the 50,000 mark between 400 and 500,000. Yes, 450,000. And now we can place this number. You see 491 would come almost all the way up to 500, right? So we'll put it up here. There's 491,852 people. Woo, that's one busy water park. That's like a city. That's a major U.S. city right there going to that park. All right, so our estimate, well, we'll write out because we drew our number line, and so we should write a statement. We don't have to write a whole sentence here, though. We can just say, we can say mathematically, we can write it out in numbers, 491,852. And I get to use one of my favorite mathematical symbols, the wavy equal sign. Yay, about equal to 500,000. And that shows, writing that shows that, okay, I actually know what the answer is. There we go. Look at that. 3 is done. Let's move on. Okay, here in number 4, we have these instructions. This number, and here it is, the mysterious number, was rounded to the nearest 100,000. And we can see the wavy equal sign is about equal to 100,000. So when it was rounded, let's be clear before we go on, when it was rounded to the nearest 100,000, it rounded to 100,000. So we are to list the possible digits that could go in the 10,000s place, where we have this blank, to make this statement correct, using a number line to show our work. Okay, so let's think about this. Let's draw a cute little number line, vertical number line. Okay, and we're going to know we will have a lower and upper point, and we might as well know that we'll mark a midpoint as well. So if it's rounding to the nearest 100,000, what are the digits that could go in the 10,000s place? Well, when we look at the number we're rounding, how many 100,000s are there? There are 100,000s, and so that would be our lower point on the number line, just the same as in any other rounding we're doing. And we're rounding to the nearest 100,000, so our question is, what is 100,000 more? 200,000. Okay, no problem, Bob. And then we are to mark our midpoint. Well, what is the midpoint between 100,000 and 200,000? Well, you can even think of it in terms of what's the midpoint between 100 and 200, or even what's the midpoint between 10 and 20? 15, right? Between 100 and 200, 150. Between 100,000, 200,000, 150,000. Okay, so that's our midpoint. Lovely. Now, the numbers that would round down to 100,000, let's think about it in the other terms first. What would round up to 200,000? Well, that would be 150,000, right? And then anything above it, rounded to the nearest 100,000, would round up to 200,000. So this range is not going to round down to 100,000. It's everything below it that would. So if you think about it, what are our 10,000 marks? Because we're trying to find the digit that would go in the 10,000 place. Well, 100,000, 110,000, right? 120,000, 130,000, 140,000. And so if you try each of these, if you try the 0, that works, right? 109,000 would round down to 100,000. 119,000, indeed, would still round down to the nearest 100,000. 129, 139, 149,644 would still round down to 100,000 as the nearest 100,000. So we will write a statement saying what is our set. This is our set here starting from under 150, right? This is our set of possible answers here. And so that missing digit could be a 0 in the 10,000s place. It could be a 1. It could be a 2 in the 10,000s place. It could be a 3, or it could be a 4. Once you get to 5, oh, yeah, that's going to round up to 200,000. So let's write a statement now. The missing digit, the missing digit could be what could it be? Well, we just listed them there. It could be 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Boomo blammo. Number 4 is done. Let's rock on to number 5. Oh my gosh, how did that happen? We're almost done. We're on the last one already. Number 5. Here we go. Estimate the sum. So estimate is to get about an answer, not an exact answer, but to say, well, it's about this much. A very useful thing to do in life. Estimate the sum by rounding each number to the given place value. Okay, so sum means we're doing what mathematical operation? We are adding. And these are the add-ins, and we will add them to get a sum. So you see, first in A we'll round to the nearest 10,000, and then in B we'll round to the nearest 100,000. And this will be interesting because you'll see how different the answers are that you get with the different degree of rounding. Okay, can we do this even without drawing a number line? I bet we could, but you know, I'm going to do one, so join me in drawing a number line, because now you're going to find this getting so much easier at this point. Okay, we're going to nearest 10,000. We look in the 10,000s place. There's a 6. That means there are 16 10,000s. So our nearest 10,000 is 160,000. Now that is a little tricky, right? The way we're talking and thinking about that. You see how that works? We're rounding to the nearest 10,000. What's the nearest 10,000? Well, it's going to be between 160,000, because that's what we have in the 10,000s place. And what's 10,000 more? Yep, that's right, 170,000. And our midpoint with the 10,000 is the 5,000 point. So 16 10,000s and 5,000. 165,000 is our midpoint. And so where does this number fall? 164, well, it would fall right before 165, would it not? 164,215. And that would round, I'm going to leave some space here because I'm going to do a second number line for the second number. So over here, I'll go over a bit, that would round where? Yes, to 160,000. Goody, goody gumdrops. Let's go back now and draw another number line to round our second number. And again, we'll look at, now you're getting the hang of this little tricky thing here. We're looking at the 10,000s place. There's a 1 there. So we have 21 10,000s, we could say. Or we could say the 10,000 point before this number is 210,000. Because you could also look at it and say, well, there's 216,000s. What's the 10,000 point before 216,000s? It would be 210,000s. Different ways of looking at the same thing. What's 10,000 more? Because we're rounding to nearest 10,000. That's right, 220,000. And our midpoint between 210 and 220, that's right, 215,000. Now where would 216 fall? Oh, golly, yeah, you got it. 216,088 would fall thereabouts. So we would round, that's right, it's closer to the 220. And so we can add that in over here. And if you wanted, you could use a place value chart, but this is a pretty straightforward addition because there's no regrouping. So 0 and 0 are 0, 0 and 0 are 0, 0 and 0 are still 0. That's where our comma goes. Great. 0 and 0 are still 0. 6 and 2 make 8. 1 plus 2 is 3. Great. So there we are. There's our answer. And we don't really need to write any more of a statement than this. This number equation here is our statement because it said estimate the sum, and that's our estimate of the sum. So we don't have to write a sentence here. All right, round to the nearest 100,000 with these same numbers. Okay, great. Let's do that. So we'll make a vertical number line. We'll look at the 100,000s place now. Draw a little arrow there. So in the 100,000s place, we have a 1. So what's the 100,000 before this? That's right, our lower point is 100,000. And what's 100,000 more? 200,000, good. And our midpoint would be, that's right, the 50,000 mark between them because we're talking about 100,000, and half of 100 is 50. So it'd be 150, right? 150,000. And where would we place our 164,215 on here? That's right, it'd fall between, so 164,215 falls there. And where would we round? That's right, up to the 200,000. All right. And now let's look at our second number. Round that to the nearest 100,000. When we look in the 100,000s place, I'll draw a little arrow again, we see there's a 2. So our lower point here is the 200,000. You see, this one's actually easier, isn't it? Doesn't require that mind bending that we had in the first one there. And then 100,000 more, because we're rounding to the nearest 100,000. So that's why I ask 100,000 more. Yes, is 300,000. And our midpoint will be the 50,000 mark between them. So 250,000 is our midpoint. Where would 216,000s fall on here? That's right, down about here. 216,088. And what would that round to? Yes, it's closer to 200,000. So isn't that interesting? They both round to 200,000, but they rounded to very different 10,000 marks. We're estimating the sum, so we will now add these numbers. Notice I have all the place values lined up the best I can. 0 and 0, here we go again. We got a bunch of them. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, comma, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 2 plus 2 makes, you got it, 4. So we can see that 380,000 is a little more precise of an estimate than the 400,000. But guess what? You're done. Homework time is over. See you next time.